Welcome back to Streamline Entertainment. I'm joined by my partner in crime and good friend Ali. How are you doing this evening?
Oh yeah, okay then. Thank you, Marvin, and good evening, everybody. Beautiful day. Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Thank you, Marvin. I've been trying to catch up with things. I dropped the chicken on the floor, as you know, but the the dog's ate most of it. So yeah, it's been okay. Thank you. I've been lots and lots of paperwork to deal with and what have you, and questions and answers and things. Yeah.
We really
Very
thank
strange times we live in.
Yes, we do. We really thank you for the hard work that you've put in, especially missing Jack O'Sullivan, and also the Jay Slater case, and also obviously Jack and Lily, the missing kids in Canada, which is such a shame they haven't been found yet. I'm just going to do a quick overview because we're here this evening to talk about the Jay Slater case, and obviously thank you, Ali, for the update at the Preston Coroner's Court, which is coming up on the 24th and 25th of July, which will be starting on the 24th at 10 a.m. But I'm just going to read a quick overview for those who are new to the Jay Slater case and have subscribed recently as well. So Jay Slater, a 19-year-old from Lancashire, went missing in Tenerife after attending a music festival in June 2024, which was last year. His body was found on July the 15th, 2024, in a remote ravine after a 29-day search. An inquest into his death revealed he died from head injury, likely from a fall, and there was no evidence of assault according to the inquest. Disappearance. Slater disappeared in the early hours of June the 17th, 2024, after attending the NRG Music Festival. Final hours. He was last heard from when he called a friend saying he was lost, had low phone battery and needed water. He was walking in the rural De Teno Park, mountainous area. A massive search was conducted by Spanish authorities and his family, utilising drones, helicopters and dogs. Discovery. His body was found in a ravine near the last known location of his phone after 29 days search. Cause of death. An inquest determined he died from head injury consistent with a fall, with no evidence of assault, according to ITV. They keep saying that, don't they? The inquest also revealed that his friends Lucy Law, Brad Hargreaves, had not been located and are considered missing. So Ali, that was the overview, and like I said, your information that obviously the new court date is on the 24th and 25th. Is there a possibility that that may carry on after 2 days? Do you think, is that a possibility?
It could do. It depends on what happens. It's entirely up to the coroner. He's in charge on the day.
Okay.
So, I had that, and I'm on the list to go.
Right.
But I've got to try and work around that somehow. Yeah, it can be if they're wanting more evidence or something transpires on the 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know quite what their remit is and what they're going to cover. My 3 folders are ready to go, so they'll be getting those next week sometime. Tracked and traced, as you do.
I'm glad that we've sort of got a little bit of a window before this resumes again. I think what's the 24th now? What's it like? 3 weeks away. And so that's good if people actually want to send things to us, or I know that Duncan send a lot of information. We've got stuff obviously that you want to send off as well, which is quite important.
Well, it's also going to the National Crime Agency as well.
Mm-hmm.
And on Monday, fingers crossed, I'm going to see one of the consultants down at Derriford Head Injuries.
Right.
Specialist to do a live down there on Monday, hopefully, to discuss, various different types of head injuries and falls and everything. It's not cut and dried, but it was a fall, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It seems to be a massive topic of conversation. We know that MWT have written it off as an accident at the end of the day, but I put a video out earlier that I think he stumbled on the criminal element of things and didn't really want to look deeper into it. And I just think a lot of the media had fobbed it off as just an accident, who just went along with what the witnesses said. But there was no really independent witness that saw Jay. Even Lucy said, why didn't people see Jay in the Masker Mountains or on the track before he went off the track, which was quite odd, because technically she was saying that he was walking in there, after 8:30 in the morning, and nobody saw him, and independent witnesses, rather than, Lucy basically technically having a phone call with him, Brad and Brandon as well, somewhere along that sort of 12-hour sort of window. Do you know what I mean? Up until he went missing, until obviously his phone died on him. It always sort of puzzled me what was going on. But I did want to ask, obviously, a few questions. Is what do you think, or I know you've written something down, but what is the sort of key questions you would like the family to sort of ask if Abe's there? Because, like I said, we don't know whether the witnesses are going to be there or not.
Well, if we can find them within 10 days, I'm sure the coroner's court can find them. They're issued with a notice of intent and summons, and if they don't respond to it at all, then they can be arrested. What do I think will come up? I would like to ask the question is why the autopsy and the palm prints were done in Los Palmas so quickly after he was found, because the guy, the coroner in charge of both Gran Canaria and Tenerife is the same guy, Juan Lopez. And how come they took him to Gran Canaria when there's a perfectly adequate coroner's office on Tenerife with all the equipment as well? That would be one of the questions I would ask. And who do we believe? Half of these people can't back their timelines up.
Well, Duncan was on about that earlier, that everything like the other side has, or professionals, or sometimes the Guardia Civil, governments, Roman, nothing is really, the mayors out there, nothing is really in concrete. It's all hearsay from them. And this is what makes this case, Ali, very, very bizarre.
Yeah, it's a wishy-washy stuff that I find. I would like to know who else was at the Airbnb with Abe, because Rocky wasn't there for 2 weeks. So with Mark Williams Thomas going on about he didn't see Rocky, no, he couldn't have done because he wasn't there. And Mark Williams Thomas was only there for 3 or 4 days anyway. Don't forget, he's a journalist.
Yes.
And that is important because he's self-employed journalist. Or Productions, who with Channel 4 doing one of the documentaries, I believe. I had spoken to them earlier last year, and they had said Mark Williams Thomas had actually agreed with them to go on to film a series called The Fall, and then they pulled out. Now we find they're in with Channel 4 doing this documentary. It doesn't add up, and I find that poor Jay is now dead. Yeah. But we should fight on behalf of all the other young people that are getting targeted by these gangs to sell drugs or drugs.
They're still out there. These people are still out there. We've got Lucy still out there, and I think that she should be roped in and have a serious telling off at the end of the day. But she is young enough to change her ways. At the end of the day, it's whether she's got this sort of mental capacity to do it and the good people around her to do it. I would say that Abe and Rocky and the rest of them, we've mentioned names connected with him. I think they're all too far gone to change their ways. And making money, even though they're not probably handling the goods. They've got probably someone young handling these goods.
Yeah, well, I would like to see that because of the ketamine MDMA that was in Jay's system, and that toxicology report in Spain and also here in the UK has highlighted that he was obviously spiked, or he was sold or given other drugs to mix with the cocaine.
It was quite worrying, because I remember, Ali, we mentioned this some months back. I think we were one of the first channels to actually say that there's a possibility that he may have been spiked, and that was one of the reasons why they quickly got him off the premises, and the Guardia Civil basically swiped the CCTV so it wasn't leaked.
Exactly, and if that's the case, then they can be done at the minimum manslaughter.
There you go. Yeah.
All the ones that are involved in it.
And the club losing its license.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Papagayo nightclub, for instance, and I spoke to the manager there, as you know.
Yes.
They had been closed since January purely because their license hadn't complied, and they didn't open then I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks just before the NRG. So they were 3 months closed, and they had to change all their security system. They've got, part of the NRG had got these 3 little words, which if people know how to use that, will give a GPS location on each of the NRG facilities and everything that was going on, because Papagayo actually wasn't going with the NRG on the Saturday night, even though it would still have their doors open because they've obviously got to make money.
Yeah, and it's quite a sort of a fancy place, because they actually do food in there as well.
Very upmarket.
And then you've got a balcony, and you can imagine all the sort of top guys that do actually go there. And what I did realise as well, and what I was told, there was so many different gangs out there, like the Marley Boys, and so many different London gangs, and all over the the northeast as well, and Scotland, Ireland. I think it was a bit of a boiling pot as well, with so many heavy people there at the same time. That's one thing I did realise in actually talking to some of the youngsters in private messages, that there was so many different gangs out there.
Yeah, I named 3. I can name 3. And obviously, they might go into one of the clubs, and, I remember as a youngster, mind you, I didn't frequent clubs much, I might say, but if I did want to go, it might not be the atmosphere I wanted, so I'd only be in there for 3 or 4 minutes and then go on to the next one.
Yeah, until you found, that's what we used to do.
It doesn't mean to say you've got to stay there all night.
No.
So I think that they're buzzing around quite a lot. The thing that I would like to see at the inquest will be Brandon. He has completely, well, we know where he is on Tenerife. We have his address. But we would like him to answer questions.
I have to admit, Ali, I just don't think he's going to be there. There's a possibility that it may, a lot of these people like your Ayubs, Lucy, I don't think that Lucy would not want to face Debbie Warren in any form or shape. I think Ayub would, as long as he's got someone with him to make sure he don't slip up. I think Ayub would, but I can't see Lucy, Brandon and Brad being there. I really can't, even though they were said to be Jay's friend. I'd be shocked if they were there, but it wouldn't put it past me that if Ayub and maybe someone else was there on video link. This is what I think.
I think they'll go on video link. I do agree with you there, Marvin.
Yeah.
I think a couple of the weak ones, if you don't mind me saying so, is Rocky. I think he gets very flustered if he's questioned. And Brad. I think Brad. And I would like to know where Brad was for 12 days.
Yeah, with that black eye of his.
Yeah. Did he go to Morocco? I don't know.
It's very, very hard to say, but I often wondered that when sort of Warren was videoing things, and you could see the sort of camera going in, and you could see just Brad just seemed in a world of his own, and it just looked like he'd been beaten black and blue or through, and thrown through a hedge backwards.
He definitely had been in some kind of a fight.
Yeah.
That I do know because of his black eyes.
A lot of people, even I was listening to Wax the other day, a lot of people that think that basically, though Brad knew everything, he was the only one who actually basically tried to help Jay, but was overpowered. And that seems to be coming more to light these days at the end of the day.
Well, he could have gone with Jay, you see. He could have been with Jay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is quite a possibility. The other person that I'd like to kind of not question myself, well, maybe, I don't know, would be DTR.
Down the rapids?
Yeah.
Why would you say that?
I think he saw things.
I do as well.
I think he was brought in, was it a couple of months ago, to do a lap damage limitation thing? But I think he was quite uncomfortable. A couple of times he looked scared to death, to be honest.
I do. I think he saw movement because I noticed he was up late. It was though he didn't trust the surroundings or the people there at the end of it, and you knew there was suspicious activity, and maybe he overheard a few things. Maybe it seemed like to me he was recording a lot. And like I said, maybe we don't know whether he had a Spanish friend who said who he could have said to, look, record everything and I will tell you what they're actually saying. But I do think it's all out because the thing about DTI, he left the island in a flash and didn't say anything for months until I think the accident crew had a word with him to come out and say something.
Well, Pedro, who he was staying with, actually asked him to leave before 10 o'clock that particular morning.
And that was the same day Jay was found, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's very strange that that they would ask somebody to leave like that. And whoever it was that asked in chat last week about who was the guy that was speaking about it in Santiago del Teide was Pedro. And Pedro was an ex-mayor. Who's also related to Roman, I might add. So, there's a lot of interconnections there and a lot of money involved in that particular area.
Yeah, definitely. But like I said, I do think that there are some people waiting in the back that has information. I've always said that's probably waiting to see what this goes. I think people know actually this is the sort of final sort of decider in where we're going to go with this case, whether these people get away with it or not. And I think people are sort of pondering on what's going to happen. There has been a bit of a lull, obviously, from what MWT's podcast, A Waiting Game. We were expecting, obviously, this video podcast or from Channel 4 or documentary, should I say, and that hasn't appeared yet. And, I'd like to sort of see at least one documentary before, obviously, we get into the court side of things.
I don't think you will. I think that they planned this to coincide. I mean, planning is about it all, really, and the timing of it is because of the impact. I think, though, that in some respects, the police have got a lot tougher, especially over here, with county lines and those different rules and regs they've put in place. I mean, there's a guy that was arrested and charged last month called Gareth. I think his last name was Williams, I'm not sure. Okay. Or Evans. Evans, I think it was. From near Swansea. And he was 70-odd years old. And he's been running a county lines and supply.
God, that's unbelievable. And he's probably someone you would never suspect.
No, well, I also know who his friend is as well.
Oh my God, such a small world.
Far away from him.
It's such a small world.
Isn't it just? Hey? You know, apparently they use the same boat as well. So I'm not going to go any further on that one, Marvin. Not tonight.
Right. We'll go into that another time. Just something would want AM questioned on, which I think is vitally important. The condition of Jay when he got into his car. I think that's vitally important. Obviously, I do believe the eyewitnesses, what he said, that Jay was actually carried off on the shoulder of someone with, technically two guys took him away to a car that was waiting. I mean,
that's been confirmed to 3 people have confirmed that.
Yeah.
So it's not just us.
Yeah, no, that's right. And him tapped, it could mean anything. It could have meant him injected with something, or
Yeah, he could have been.
because people said that there would have been a mark on this body, and surely the police would have seen that. But sometimes what we can remember in high-profile cases as well, that sometimes information like this can be very, can be kept quiet. Because if he had been, surely someone would have saw that and said, look, there's something happened here, it's foul play. Nobody said a word, and we know that there are actually loads of people outside these clubs who record things that go off, fights and everything.
Well, we do know that because of the guy that supplied the video evidence of the beach film.
Yes.
I believe that Brad and Jay walked back to the apartment in Los Cristianos, which is 1.4 miles away.
Oh. You say they take us. You think they took a stroll back and then ambushed?
Yeah. Well, I think that Ayub and what have you went back with them, and then I think it spilled over into the beach. That's what I think now on my timeline.
Wow.
And then the taxi for Jay Slater arrived, and I think that then they went to Los Gisantes.
Mm-hmm.
Costa Adige, then Los Gisantes, because we saw the boat scene where Ayub was leaning over Jay in the boat.
Yes.
And we saw the same vehicle that was parked at the Airbnb, the white kind of van thing. We have that number, that registration number, but that was seen going towards the jetty as well, and that's
a lot of people say that they believe that, that just their thoughts, that they think that vehicle was owned. It wasn't a hire car, it was actually Roman's car to obviously move things.
I don't know about that because I never checked on the ownership of it, but we do have the registration number of it.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Because it was outside the Airbnb, and of course they sent I call them the demolition team, but what it was is the disinfection organisation that went up there 72 hours after Jay was reported missing to do a complete washdown of everything. And that vehicle was still there.
Why do you think, just a quick question, Ali, why do you think that step was painted? Because so many people said they think that in the early days that they saw blood on that doorstep.
Yeah.
And where would that come from? Because like I said, it does coincide with an altercation of people shouting earlier on in the morning.
Well, funny enough, that step has always bothered me.
Okay.
And when I looked at it a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if you remember, because there's such a lot to take in with all this case.
Yeah.
There was what I want for a better word is a concrete ledge around the bottom of that Airbnb or the cottage, where plants were put or sometimes nothing. But that adjoined that step. Afterwards, part of that concrete ledge that was adjoined to the step is missing, and the pipe up the step was on the other side. The bottom step has a pipe on the right-hand side.
Okay.
It was on the left. It's now on the right, and that was what bothered me, was that whoever been up there had done a lot of work. And if you remember, there was a lot of road works up there with people working. I think it was done then, and it was painted over, basically. Maybe to camouflage what had been going on. Who knows?
Yeah, and if there was altercations and fights and them high and and them all fighting, which if you got to remember with youngsters, sometimes they're thinking, right, if Jay had passed and then Abe is basically say, look, we've got to say this, you have to do that, or one of you've got to do the walk. Whoever one of the boys has got to do the walk, and Brad. And Branda said, look, we're not doing it. I'm not doing that walk or pretending to be Jay. What if I get caught for it?
Yeah, I think I know who did that walk. Okay.
Yeah.
He's very much like, not much like Jay, but he's got the same kind of stature.
Yeah.
He's not quite as tall maybe, but, I mean, if they've seen a similar type of person, are you going to be able to identify them if you've only spoken to them for 5 minutes? I don't even believe that conversation took place.
No, I don't either, because nobody else, apart from Ophelia and Abe, had really saw a husband who didn't. Was it Ophelia's husband who apparently there was at the door, and Abe said the son as well? How come they never made witness statements?
Well, she did do a witness statement, and then it was withdrawn.
Yeah, no, but what about the son and apparently her husband? Yeah.
I do know that she made a witness statement, and the day before the inquest started, it was withdrawn.
That's bizarre, isn't it?
It is bizarre. Wow. It's very bizarre.
And
a whole case is, I mean, if you look at the size of those cactus bushes and it's so dense, would you go walking in shorts and a pair of trainers and just a t-shirt? No. Especially as
I'm actually...
Warren was completely right. Yeah. Jay wouldn't even walk to the barber's to have his haircut.
Just as we're talking, I'm actually playing a video of the Masker Mountains, but you'll see it later, Ali. And it's some of these... Just looking at them, you would never say anybody would chance even sort of walking in there. You've just got no chance if you haven't got the right equipment, and you'd have to be with an expert, sort of, going up some of these mountains.
Yeah, I mean, we did do the film of the walk that Freddie Doble did, which was down round behind the shortcut, and that was in a small path. And to be honest with you, it made me feel ill just watching him walking down there.
I remember.
It's not a place that I would want to go to unless I was in hiking boots and everything else. I mean, and trained. I mean, you can go back the other way and come upwards from Juan Lopez Beach, okay? Because there is a better way of coming up, but you can't use it going down because the actual path is closed to go down.
If you also remember in the early days, Ali, sort of Chris Tenerife and the news was basically, you would laugh.
You mean? Sorry, I couldn't get that one.
I thought so, because we were told in the early days, we would just go in with it, this poor lad, nobody really knew what was happening. And then they said, like, Chris, the news were talking to Chris Tenerife, and basically he's ex-Army Reserve or something. So we were thinking, he's a big guy and possibly the SAS.
He's not very tall.
No, he's tubby.
I don't mean to be nasty, Chris. I love you, really.
And then they sort of went down to, I thought it was going to like some kind of like army wear boots, and it was like trainers.
Yeah, but then he couldn't get up, could he? He just couldn't get up. I'd like to know who Adrian was as well. Never saw him, did we?
No, and I bet he's probably the one that they thought, we better not let him talk because he might say too much. This is what I found, and I just think that one of the reasons why I think Chris Tenerife doesn't talk anymore is because he probably's been told not to, because he may say too much. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
and they've taken that at the front line.
He's involved in all the large businesses out there, isn't he? I mean, we do know that, and we do know he sits on one of the councils. So you know, he's not going to let his livelihood get demolished, is he?
Yeah.
And of course, you know, I mean, he was very good. Well, he didn't do it, did he? It was that Mark Smith that did that caricature of him. But no, when he got down in like a little slope, and it wasn't very big, he couldn't get up again. And I thought, well, he's supposed to be an army reservist, and he's only got trainers on.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
He couldn't get up. You know, they had to help him up. And I thought, well, this is stupid. What
I mean,
gonna...
we had sort of British tabloids, you know, newspapers out there, and they was sort of and yes, we've got Christian, who's, you know, ex-army or, you know, army reserve at the end of the day. And I thought, yeah, he looks handy, because it's just your first sight. And then they sort of, the camera lowered down. I think it's wearing trainers. I just couldn't believe it.
I know. And of course, if he had a few drinks, which one night he did, then he gets very uptight about things, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I don't think he'll be at the inquest somehow.
What about, I mean, are we going to get any surprises? Maybe someone like Rachel Hargreaves or a partner?
I don't think Rachel Hargreaves and Andrew Taylor will be there somehow. I just don't know. He doesn't need to go and step back on to Spanish soil again, because he'll probably get arrested, knowing his history. I don't think they'll be there, to be honest with you.
So we're just going to be just finishing off, Ali, just under 5 minutes. So I think Ayub will be on video link. I don't think he'll be in the court. I don't think he'll be able to stomach it, but a video link with probably the solicitor in the background, you know, sort of technically telling them what to say or what not to say. I think that is possible. Rocky, maybe.
Maybe. I'm not so sure.
Can you see Lucy being there?
Not if she had a choice.
But if she's forced to come, but like
if she's forced to come, she'll have to go, won't she?
Yeah. And Brandon.
Oh, Brandon, I'd love to see there. I think he ought to be escorted back, because I know exactly where he lives over there. And why they say they couldn't find any of them is beyond me.
Do you think that is? I don't think they tried hard enough. Maybe.
No, they were micromanaging. I'm going to call it that.
But like I said, if Debbie hadn't really sort of kicked up a fuss, and you know, like, this is her son that had gone missing, and I think people really got behind her, that she sold some fire in that she's not going to let this go, and because those questions will always live with you. Do you know what I mean? That you didn't know. Do you know what I mean? And this is your chance to really stand up and say something.
I think they're going to be walking a very narrow tightrope here, but I think they will get a couple of them. I think they will. If they've gone by the toxicology report, both in Spain and the UK, which don't all agree, I might add, then it would be manslaughter, because either they've been spiked or they've been given those drugs deliberately. I would like to see an open verdict. I don't think it will be. The next best thing would be death by misadventure.
Do you think, Ali, that it's very important for the family to ask? Because I think they're going to be more prepared. But the other thing is, I think the witnesses are going to be more prepared as well in what to say.
Oh, yeah, I believe it's being managed. I strongly believe that. I've got my own ideas on that. It's going to be interesting, because the toxicology reports don't add up. They don't compare. And I think that there's going to be a few questions over that. And who actually organised the trip would be Lucy, because she was head of the group and she organised the NRG and everything else. Well, she is responsible. She's got to hold her hands up and respond. And she's lied through her teeth. But is she going to be there? I don't think so. I think they'll be lucky to get her there if luck is anything to go by. They'll look upon this now and nothing will bring Jay back, which is extremely distressing for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I think the family will just want to see closure. That's what I think. But I think that they would also want a few heads to roll. And let's just hope that that happens.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that basically, if AIP's there, they've got a good chance of getting some kind of justice at the end, because I do think he will come unstuck with the questions. I'm sure now Debbie and Warren have had a chance to listen to a lot of the channels. I know that basically Warren listens to Wax and have told him to keep going in the past and never ever told him to stop. So that tells me at least they're still searching for questions and answers. And I was quite surprised in what Debbie and Warren didn't know, to be honest with you, and still wanted to question Lucy, Brad, Brandon, and Ayab and Rocky. At the end of the day, because basically it seems like to me there's so many unanswered questions, and it was left like that after the funeral. It seems like everyone went their own ways and hoping that basically the verdict was given, and that was it.
Well, I think it's very close to them, and in that kind of scenario, you can't think straight yourself. So all those questions you think of gradually come. And then you think, I must ask that, or I must ask this, and I didn't realise that. And so many things are being thrown at both Debbie, Warren, and Zach, which were unfair.
Yeah.
That they needed to process it all, because after all, they've lost their son. And that is tragic. Yeah. But the only thing that I can say now is that something good might come out of it in Jay's name. Yeah. That other youngsters won't go through the same thing. That is sort of my point in why I sort of make these videos, and basically to protect our youngsters. And one thing we have done, I think, obviously the people, the accident crew, the people who set Jay up, their names, their photos now and videos of them coming out and laughing and joking about it at the end of the day, they're going to be known for life. People actually know who they are because, they put themselves out there. Do you know what I mean? As being dishonest. And like I said, the whole world, got to see who these people are. So I think people, if they do come across them, they're not going to trust them. Well, it's raising awareness, isn't it? That's the main thing. And if we raise awareness, then I think we've got some justice for Jay, because then youngsters may be more protected. The book should be thrown at them. The book for manslaughter should be thrown at them for supplying drugs to these youngsters. In whatever way they participate.
I do think the Guardia Seville knew what happened to Jay in the early days, and they knew. I think they knew. They knew it was rug related and thought we need to play this down, and that's why I think it was conducted very, very early on as as a missing person's place.
I agree with you there, and I think that some of these rules and regs, the police ought to say, like they do now, the one in Nova Scotia. It is criminal. It's flagged up as possible criminality unless proved otherwise. Yeah. So rather than go down missing persons case, which takes you down the civil actions way, which takes you away from criminality, it should be that is considered at first as well. And then you can get the right lawyers and the right people onto it. Once you go down that missing persons route, that criminology doesn't always come into play.
Yeah.
And that might be an important factor.
And this is
in any case.
and this is where, like, we've had, you know, some like podcasts come out and they've gone with the toxicology report as truth, but they've not really delved in to a lot of the characters, Ali, in this case, as well as we've done. Do you know what I mean? They've not really questioned Abe. They've not really questioned, basically, Rocky. They've not really questioned where this Jonathan Atanda come from. They've not really questioned PP and the clubs and stuff like that. They've not really looked into it in a worldly sense of view. What they've gone with is on a tabloid vibe, and this is as far as they can. They can't seem to sort of grasp that. What about if this underworld was true? Do you see what I mean? What if something went on that was dodgy at the end of the day and played into it? If you look at their actions, if you look at the videos, it tells you a completely different story. And I just think basically there are people out there who want to fabricate that basically the truth and what happened to Jay Slater, because if it does come out into Tenerife, we'll all know this could happen to any basically Tom, Dick and Harry that goes to Tenerife, or any youngster or any vulnerable person that we've seen, single men, single women go over there and really get themselves into trouble for being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Attractive money, and this is big organised criminals and gangs. It's business. It's well organised, and you're up against it a bit. And our police forces worldwide have only got a certain amount of resources. So their boss at the top will give them jobs to do, but they do have a budget to keep to. And that is the restriction that is the difference between organised gangs who just live off of this kind of stuff, which is big money. It's huge. And then they plow it back into companies and properties and money launder, so it can't be traced, or very difficult to trace. And it takes more experts and costs more money to trace it than it is what it's worth. But the trouble is with all this, you're losing lives and young people. If we can protect them, my goodness me, are we going to? Yes, of course we are.
Of course, yeah, I agree. Okay, Ali, thank you very much indeed. So hopefully we may even, you never know, we may even get a surprise and maybe have a documentary come out before the inquest, who knows, or more information. There are some videos on TikTok of apparently Chris Tenerife and Luggy making their videos out in the mountains somewhere in Tenerife. So
well, we're hoping to do one on Monday. One of the top consultants going through autopsies and that. So we might hopefully get that out there, but we're very, very much depending on when we can go, exactly what the timings are and how much time they're going to allow us. But that would be interesting, and you know.
We've got
but
that
I
to
don't
come.
think there's going to be much coming out until after the inquest, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you very much, Streamliners and the public. Thank you for your support. Don't forget to subscribe to Streamline Entertainment and also Streamline Investigations, because this obviously is very, very insightful, what myself and Ali have said on this topic of Jay Slater. I'm going to put it over on Streamline Investigations too, because there's different channel members over there. So do subscribe to both channels. Once again, thank you, Ali, and we look forward to hopefully your video coming out maybe on the Tuesday or the Wednesday after it's been edited and
well,
stuff.
We hope so. We can't ever guarantee it because you know, they don't get paid to do this, and it's just in the lap of the gods, really. Just want to say to Karen, the American lady who was just supposed to be joining as a member of Streamline, I'll come and sort you out, Karen, because it was a misunderstanding, really. But hopefully you've enjoyed tonight.
Okay, that is wonderful. Thank you very much for everyone on Streamline Entertainment. Thank you very much indeed. And like I said, I'm just going to obviously